Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another TPM Tactical video. Today's video is going to cover off on creating a faction. So from my understanding, there's 4 different options. So we have number 1 here, override. So we're overriding a vanilla or mods faction, which in my opinion is the easiest option. And you can do it either for PvP conflict or PvE conflict. Today's video is going to be on the PvP conflict, which is the easiest in my opinion. PvE conflict is a bit more difficult, whereas you need to start changing all the all the different groups, the soldiers themselves, what they're wearing, going into that type of detail. While the PvP conflict, you're not worried about that because everyone's just selecting their own gear and spending hours at the arsenal trying to be tactical Barbie. From there, you're moving on to option 2, so duplicate. So you're duplicating the configurations and the assets on vanilla or mods. Further testing required, I have written here. Because I haven't fully tested this option, it may not fully work as intended, so that's a bit iffy, option 2. So yeah, continue on from there. So option 3 is creating a new faction using vanilla or mods. So rather than overriding or duplicating, we're creating a new config and we're going through plugging everything in. And then option 4, so creating a new faction using your own custom assets. So say how, who we got? So RHS, how they created their own factions themselves, gone through their own custom assets. They've got their own gear, weapons, etc. Made their own factions. So that's going to be your hardest method. Requires a fair bit of in-depth knowledge, and definitely follow the Arma Forger wiki on the BI's website, not the BI wiki. It takes a fair while to do that, a lot of effort, and have a bit of scripting and whatnot involved in relation to that as well. But like I said previously, what we're going to do is we're going to cover off on overriding a vanilla faction. So we're just going to do the US in this video. Before we jump in any further, if you are enjoying these videos, again, hit that like and subscribe. If there's a tutorial you'd like to see, or if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave it below in the comments section. Otherwise, feel free to hit me up on the Arma Forger Discord. Just search TPM, and with the same logos you see here on the YouTube channel. Okay, so let's launch the Arma Forger tools. So I've got the workbench launcher here, and add a project, create a new project. Let's call this Blackstone Security. Just going to hit create. So now it's creating my new project. Here we are. Okay, so as you can see at the top left, it's created our Blackstone Security project folder. Inside here, I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this images. Usually I'll create a worlds and missions, but I'm not going to worry about that because this is purely for a faction. Images is where I'm just going to put all my data for the meantime. Sorry, data, by that I mean my icons and emblems and stuff I'm going to bring in for my faction. Okay, so we're expanding Arma Forger here on the left hand side. We're looking for configs, being configurations, and then we're looking for factions. Here it is here. So by default, Arma Forger comes with whatever this is, what's like 15 odd factions here. Being that just different repeated ones, so Blue Force, Civ, not sure what Dummy's for. Some of them seem to be like templates or not yet finished. But the main ones that we're going to be looking at today is going to be anything with campaign. So if you see US_campaign or USSR_campaign, that's going to be your conflict-related scenarios, conflict-related factions, sorry. Ones like just USSR and US config, I believe they're more tailored towards like the scenario framework style of creating missions as opposed to conflict. But again, for the purpose of this video, we're just going to be using the US campaign configuration. I'm going to right click and go override in Blackstone project, or my Blackstone Security project. Okay, so as you can see now, left hand side here, it's created the configs folder and factions folder. So it's recreated the original structure from the Arma Forger folder. Here's our override. As you can tell down the bottom left, it's got a little puzzle symbol. So now I'm just going to double click on it and bring up the actual configuration. Okay, so here we are by default. Let me just minimize all these, and we'll work our way through. When using the override process, do not touch the faction key. So this is that unique identifier for this particular faction. So USSR will have, well, will be USSR, FIA, again FIA. RHS has, I think it's RHS underscore AFRF and USMC. And probably RHS underscore Ion for their Ion faction as examples. So that's something that you create and generate as a part of building your faction from scratch using this fourth method down the bottom here. Or actually even the third method, creating your own faction. You create your own identifier, your own faction key. But we're just going to leave it as the default US. The reason why we do the override and why it's the simplest option is if you override the US campaign, like in this example, any mission that you open that uses the default vanilla factions, it will just override the information related to that. And you don't need to do anything to the mission. Your faction is then good to go. So yeah, just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so we've got faction color here. Let's modify this. We'll just choose something random. So UI information. This is basically going to give you, to the player, it's going to show you the name of the faction is going to be different. You're going to give it a different icons, different faction flag, and whatnot. Different information is going to be displayed for them. Oh, so that's just in this one spot here, not all the way down there. My apologies. So the UI information here. So as you can see, this is the US faction by default. We're going to change this to Blackstone Security. I'm not going to put a description there. Again, you could. Let's put some info actually. US based, US themed PMC. Blackstone Security is a faction that fictional faction that I've created for my community, along with Cossack, being the USSR PMC that I use. Okay, so the next part down here is this icon. If I click this magnifying glass, it's going to take me to this original location. I'm just going to double click on this EDDS file. Okay, so this is what this looks like, and this is the icon that appears when you're in game. If we take note at the top left, correction, top right, you see the width is 128 by 128. So if you want to create a icon that's going to, your own little icon to use for your faction, you need to go into Photoshop, GIMP, or whatever software you're utilizing and create a image that is 128 by 128 pixels. So I have my own already, being this one here for Blackstone. So that will be the one that I will utilize. Okay, so what we're going to do, we want to replace this. So if I go over here, top left, and go back into my project, so Blackstone Security Images, I'm just going to drag and drop everything related to my Blackstone. So I'll do all these in one go. So I have my flag, and then I have my flag here, and then I have what is that called? Actually, I think that's my faction flag. This is for the EMAT. I'll explain what those are a bit later. So I'm clicking and dragging my 3 images into here. It's coming up with the script authorization. Feel free to read it, otherwise you just hit yes to all, and that gives it permission to import it and then also convert the JPEG, in my instance, rather than a PNG, convert it to an EDDS file. Once we've imported my images, my 3 JPEGs into the Reforger tools, and it's been converted to an EDDS file, what we want to do is just double click on them so it brings it up. Down the bottom right, we're going to go import settings, and down here we're going to change the format compressed to best and the color space to sRGB and re-import resource. So that's just going to improve the overall quality when it's displayed in game. Again, I'm going to do the same thing for every single one of my images that I've imported. And the flag. Sweet, all of them being re-imported. It tells you down the bottom right that it's successful. Okay, so again, we're up to this icon. Here's my icon here. I'm going to click on it and just drag it across. There we go. We now have a different icon. Now in the name upper, so uppercase name, what we're going to do is just type out Blackstone Security. Oh my gosh, too much pressure. Blackstone Security, all in uppercase. Okay, so moving down, we've got faction identifier, or sorry, what do you call it? Identity of soldiers, the faction identity. What we can do is we can go in here, and so we can actually modify which head, which body that each one of these random characters will be displayed as. So maybe you're making an African faction and you want to use the African or the black body basically. And then obviously you'd use a black head to go with it. And so you'd have all your characters have that same color skin, same model. So you can see here you got head black, characters base body black, 2, number 3. The base body's all the same for the white characters. There's an Asian one there as well. And you could expand, go through. You could create more if you wanted to by just hitting the plus. If you wanted to have another one. But I'm going to leave more as default. Yeah, so one thing to note, see how these original ones here are kind of grayed out and this one's highlighted, bolded, and in white? That means that something has changed in that config or whatever you're working on that's different from the original content. So if you're looking for stuff that you have changed, look for those highlighted sections. So let me delete that. So I'm not going to change any of the identity of the soldiers. So now I'm just going to look up top left here. This little star on the tab means that there's something that's been changed in here and hasn't been saved yet. So hit Control S and I'm just going to save that. So the order of the faction, we won't touch this value as we're just going to have, so this is the order that's going to appear in the list. We won't touch that value. So 0 will be the first. I believe the next one down will be USSR, will be 1, 2, 3, etc. going on. So we'll just leave that default value. So outline of faction color. So I'm just going to choose random colors for the outline. Notification faction color and notification text faction color. Again, I'm just going to choose something random so it looks different. So it is playable. Obviously, we're doing this as a PvP, so we want this faction to be playable. So we leave that as ticked. We're going to show it in the welcome screen if non-playable. So if you have a PvE faction or the, the FIA, we don't want it to appear. So if you want it to show in the welcome screen if non-playable, we'd have it ticked. If we don't want to see there and you just want like the 2 options, so USSR and US, you would have that unticked. So if true, we'll show faction in the welcome screen even if it is not playable. We want it in the welcome screen anyway, so we'll just leave that as default. Is military? Yes, we want it to be a military faction. So if it's not military, then it's going to be classified like as a civ faction, and then the AI would act differently. Won't matter too much for PvP, however, you do have the FIA faction, and I believe if you have that unticked, they won't attack you. Okay, so now we've got the faction flag. So let's click on the magnifying glass to locate the original. I'm going to double click on that. And again, information related to that. So the size of this EDDS file is 800 by 400 pixels. So you need to locate or create a image that size to replace this original. And as you've already seen, I've already imported my images here. So here's mine, 800 by 400. I'm just going to click and drag that in here. I'm going to save that. Okay, so now for the faction flag material. So this is going to be related to, this and this will appear on your menu, you load in your deployment screen, and where else is located? I think when you press P on PC, bring up your player menu and your squads. That's where this information is generally displayed. This information here, this faction flag material, this is going to be related to overriding the actual flag that is sitting outside the HQ in game. When you're running around, you see the flag waving in the wind. So this is going to be related to that. So what we're going to do again is follow the magnifying glass to this EMAT. As you can see here, flag _1_2_USA .emat. If we double click on that, this is what you have here. Because this is locked, we can't actually do anything to this particular file again, so we're going to override this. So override in Blackstone security. Sweet. And here it is. So what we're looking at here, up here's the main bit of information we want to change. So this BCR map information, this is pointing to this original. Being again, this is the flag that's going to be waving. They have it offsetted slightly so that the way it overlaps on the pole, I think this part wraps around. My flag is the emblem's just in the center. I should probably relocate it, but I couldn't be bothered, to be honest. Again, you're looking for the information here, 1024 by 1024, but you have to take into consideration that includes this bottom black part here as well. So when you would make you could do a quick, Windows Shift S to do your screen capture or snippet. Select this. There it is. And then you go into, let's just do it as an example. Let's go into Photoshop quickly. I'm just going to right click, copy, a new file, actually 1024 by 1024, I chuck it up to 300, make this 16-bit. I'm no Photoshop guru, so if you have better options, leave in the comments below. Hit create, here we are. So here's what I've just copied from my snipping tool. Just going to expand that out to the max size. Awesome. And now, how can I make this from scratch? I'll just use my icon. That probably won't work that well. Oh, cancel that. Bring across my Blackstone flag. So what you would do is, like, if you just have your icon or whatever flag that you made up in the original shape, you want to chuck this over the top. But if you want to get the exact location, so if you kind of make it transparent, so you kind of work out where it needs to go and make it fit, so it's got to cover that original location, so the original area. Oh, I've gone a little high. Let me adjust that. Why isn't that letting me adjust it? What am I doing wrong here? There we go. It's going to go a little lower. Get rid of that. So that's where your flag would cover. Obviously, we want to cover in the background as well. Oh, that didn't work. Let's make this black. Chuck that behind. Oh, it's not even black. What am I doing? There. So that would be in the right location roughly now. Then you would export it out of Photoshop or whatever software you're using, and then report it into here as I previously done. Okay, so this is what is that the one I've overridden? Let me get back on track here. Config, so assets, sorry. All the way down here. So this is the EMAT that I've overridden. Now what I want to do is locate my flag that I've made, already imported, and I'm going to just click and drag it to replace the original. So there it is now. Control S to save that. Actually, what I might do, I might just rename this. Actually, no, I overrode it, so I'll leave that. And as you can see, because I've overridden it, it's already changed information here. Okay, so faction label, leaving it as faction US, friendly to self. Yes, we want to leave that. Faction, correctly, friendly faction IDs. So maybe you have another faction you want to add in here. Another faction you've created, you want to add them as a friendly. So this is where you put their faction key in. We have no friendly factions, so we're leaving it as no other friendly factions. So call sign information. So I previously touched this a little in creating the patches or the custom squads in one of my videos. So if you wanted to go through here, you can modify all the company names, platoon names, squad names. I can't remember exactly what it says. But I think it's like Atlas Red 1. So Atlas being the company name, platoon name is Red, and then call sign is squadron name is 1. So you can go through and change these if you like. So let's just put it in here. Capitals on again. Actually, no, we'll call this, let's just call it Blackstone here. what did I click on? Oh, yeah, Blackstone is the first call sign. We'll call this Blackstone Alpha, will be the platoon name, and then the squad we'll call, I don't know, we'll call it A, so it stands out so we can easily identify it. So yeah, you can go through and modify each one of these to make it fit your custom faction that you're trying to create. Moving through here, faction radio encryption key, chicken nuggets, leave that as is. Again, because you're overriding, you're not creating your own faction from scratch, definitely just leave that as it is. If you have a particular radio piece of equipment, so one of the AMPRC radios, if it had a different encryption key, it would then no longer be used by this faction. It needs to have the same encryption key, is my understanding. Again, if you have a bit more information on that, feel free to leave that in the comments below. Faction radio frequency. So this is your default radio frequency. 4800, correction, 48,000 is the default frequency there. So ranks, if you want to go through and change all the ranks, you're welcome to do so. And you can change, link it to different insignias. But this goes all the way to the general. Well, what's renegade? Or major. It's up to major in this case. Captain, lieutenant. Again, you can go through and modify so you can have your own custom ranks. Entity catalog. Okay, so we don't really need to do too much in here. So your characters, you could go through and randomize and change all these. We're just going to leave these as default because, again, it's a PvP. We don't need to go into depth in this. The main thing that we want to change in here for PvP would be your vehicles and your items. So your items has all your weapons. That's going to be related to your arsenal. And your vehicles, again, it's going to relate to your build menu. So all the vehicles you're going to be able to build. Let's minimize some of these so you can see them all. Geez, still have everything expanded at some stage. Is there a quicker way to do this? Can I right click? I don't know. Maybe if there is, if you do know a quicker way to, can I just hit backspace? Delete? No, maybe not delete. For some reason I've had all these expand at some stage. Okay, stop it. Leave it as, but this is where you have all your vehicles, so you can modify your entity catalog here. Or if you want to have different entity catalogs, you may actually go into Armor Forger, configs, entity catalog, where are we? Go into US and where are we here? So entity catalog, also that's characters, inventory items, or vehicles, depending on what you want to do. You can right click, go override. Yep, I just want to save anything I've done there. And now bring up the new entity catalog and you can modify it here. Because you're overriding it, it's automatically going to override this default entity catalogs related to this one's items. So that's where he would override. If you created your own from scratch, you could click and drag it in here. So let's do that. Let's duplicate this. Let's chuck on the end TPM for this test example. What I can do is I can go through here. Oh, that didn't even duplicate. That's weird. I thought it would put all the information in there. Well, either way, you can go through here now, plug in and add all your own individual items. Let's find what's M16. This goes in a bit more depth in one of my other videos, so you can look up the Arsenal videos. Just on the YouTube channel, be able to locate those. You can go, yeah, it covers off on how to either create your own custom entity catalog or overriding as well. But in this example, I'll drag that into there, save that. Let's just locate the original, navigate to this file. So back into here, once you have your own custom entity catalog, you can click it and just drag it into here. It will override. Let me just save that. I'm just going to close this now, reopen it. Where were we? So down here, the only thing what you need to change here is this section here to item, and then it has everything you've listed in there. So in this case, it's just the M16. Okay, we'll leave it there. Again, you can go through, customize all these as per what your requirements are. Okay, so group flags, these are generally just left blank. I haven't dug into these yet. So group flag, blue 4 image set. I'm not 100% sure what these are related to. Let's have a quick look. Oh, okay, so that's just these related. The different logos, different symbols that appear on your map. And wherever else these would be utilized. Okay, let's close some of these. Moving on, flag names. Again, these will just line up with those the image sets. So infantry, etc., etc. We're not going to modify any of them unless you're creating your own image sets, which I haven't done yet. But at some stage, I will no doubt do that and create a video on it. What else we got? Base call signs. So if you want to change it, rather than the point being Alabama, Alaska, etc., etc., you can change the names in here so that it comes up with a different call sign, different capture points. The only downside is you wouldn't have the audio that goes with it. You'd have to create your own custom audio to override or inject for whatever name you're trying to capture over point or whatever call sign you use there. So again, you can go through and modify any of these. Okay, what have we got next? So defender group prefab. We don't have to worry about this for PvP. If you're modifying the FIA, you may change the group from the default one. If we go in here in this example, US defenders, I'm just going to override into my mod so that I can give an example what's in there. So in here under US defenders, what do we have? Where is it made up of? Must be down here. What am I looking for? Behavior tree. Oh, here we go. The very top one. So it's just made up of a campaign USAI 1, 2, 3. So it's just made up of these characters here. So just 3 of those in this particular instance. So you can go through and modify those if you like. But again, because this is a PvP faction, I'm not going to worry about that. What else we got? Starting vehicles. If you want to change the vehicles that start at your MOB when your round starts, you can go through and modify these. If you want to change it from a transport truck to... what do I want to change it to? MO25. 3 MO25s, why not? Mobile HQ prefab, so campaign mobile assembly west. This is your mobile truck. Mobile respawn, if you want to modify that, you can change that accordingly. The preferred radio, so this is your radio backpack, I believe. Was that the handheld? Yeah, it's the radio backpack, AMPRC 77. Your base building HQ. This is going to be the default one for the US. Why can't I rotate? There we go. You can go in there and modify that if you like. You should be able to override or replace if you want to do something completely different. Close that. And you start to go in here, and you can start to modify. As you can see, you already got the Blackstone flag there when we overrated it earlier. And you can start to move some of this around. You can add more things into it. You can change the different netting, different tent itself, different items inside if you want to get into the detail, into the weeds. But again, I'm not doing that in this particular instance. And base building supply depot, it has none by default. I can't remember what maybe it is none by default all the time. I can't remember what normally sits in there. Okay, so we've pretty much gone through most of the stuff related to what we need to do for the faction. So I've just saved that. Let's jump into the world editor and load up a mission. Let's do Ireland. So CTI, capture the island campaign being conflict, and Ireland being the island vanilla map that comes with Arma Reforger. So it has everything I need. I'm not creating a mission, just using the default. Going to hit play. Come on. Okay, so here's that flag we changed earlier, just the normal rectangular one. Here's that Blackstone security we entered in. Here's the faction color we changed to originally. Let's hit continue. Going to select Blackstone. Yep. So Blackstone Alpha A. That's what we chose earlier. We didn't get into customizing our predefined squads, so we're just leaving it the default. If you want to change all your predefined squads though, the frequencies and whatnot, I do have a video on that. Feel free to look that up on YouTube again. Let's go in. So here's our new color. If we change the call sign information, it wouldn't say Florida, it would have another name. Well, let's spawn on in. Actually, we'll change the default loadout. We'll show you how to do that as well. So here's our beautiful flag blowing in the breeze. Nice sunny day here at Ireland. So that's what we've modified with that EMAP before, pointing back to with that BCR information image that we put in there. We have 1, 2, we shouldn't have a truck. Yep, so we've got 3 of these Humvees sitting here. So we replaced that again in the faction information, the config as well. Apologize, I'm a bit over the place today. It's 8:30 at night. I've had a long day at work. And 8 9 o'clock is my usual bedtime anyway. Bit of an old fogey like that. Okay, let's close the editor, world editor. Back in here. Okay, so what we might do now is we'll change the default loadout. What was it called? US campaign _ campaign. Pretty sure that's what it's. No, that's not what it's called. Oh, I can't think what it's called. Armor Forger. Let's go have a look. Prefabs. I will get there as a characters. Campaign. Final. Here we are. So US campaign _ US _ player is what I was looking for. So I double click on that. So this is the default character loadout that you spawn in with. So let's right click on this and go override into the Blackstone security project. So double click on it now, and I'm going to go edit. What I'm looking for in here is this here. So this little symbol. So editable character component. Firstly, you have in here, there's different variants you can have. If you want to only have one variant, you don't want to have like multiple different variants, untick this and it will remove that variant. You can also disable here if you want to be extra cautious disabling it. However, if you want to have different variants, you go through and make your own variants and add them in just by adding the plus. You then go to your new variant. So let's create this one here. Let's duplicate it. We'll call it variant 3. And we're just going to drag that into here. Whoops. Onto that. Control Z to go back. Drag that into this no prefab section here. Variant prefab. And then you would have another different option. So randomize weight. The randomization weight of the variant, the higher this value, the more likely it is random selected. So minimum 1, max is unlimited. We'll just leave it as 1. So you can have different variants if you do want different variants, but in this scenario, I'm just going to disable having different variants. And I'm just going to take this back to 1 anyway. Just going to disable that. So we don't want any other variants. Okay, so let's have a look in here. Go into your, this is where you go through now. Oh, where is it? Base loadout. So this is where you start to change all the gear that you're wearing. So helmets. I'm just gonna make it very random. Oh, I put pants. So BDU jacket. What other jackets we got? M70. Vest. I'll leave the vest. Pants. Not much variety, so let's just choose these ones. Sweet, this is going to be our default loadout. You can go through for each item, boots, backpack, vest, handwear, etc., and add in what you like. One thing to consider though, whatever you've done there, you need to go into the SCR inventory storage manager component, and this is where you would insert every single item that you want in your default loadout. So you can see here, by default, it had this radio, compass, paper map, etc., and purpose was deposit, and that was all going into, I assume it was probably the jacket. Since I changed the jacket, it's no longer sitting there, so I'll deposit it back into the jacket anyway. But you can go through, you can add more in, you can get rid of some if you like. So the flashlight is not a deposit, but it's an attached to item. So purpose equipment attachment, so that sits on the outside of the actual vest. That's the little MX991 light, which sits right. Whoop. Now I've lost myself. If you ever get lost like that, select the entity over here on the left hand side and hit F, so Foxtrot. So that, like I was saying, is the torch that's sitting on the front here. Again, you deposit each one of your items that you want to go into which particular part of the equipment. So whether it's your backpack with your vest, shorts, pants, etc. So you can see standard rounds here are going into the Alice pouches, sorry. Cool, so once you've done that, make sure you save your character, Control S, so just hitting the little save symbol. This is now our default player. So if I now go into, make sure that's saved, go back into the editor, world editor, going to load into the last mission I had open, being the CTI campaign island, or conflict island. Going to hit play. Gonna load in Blackstone security. Wait, why did that not work? I think I changed the wrong one. Let's see what I did wrong. Campaign, why is that? Did I not save that? What did I do wrong down here? Disable the variant. SCR. No, base loadout manager. I must not have saved it. Even though I did say save it. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so we've changed the shirt, or the jacket, we'll change the helmet. Control S. Should be saved now. Yep, so it's saved in there. Awesome. Let's now go into the world editor again. Back into the CTI campaign island or conflict island. Gonna hit play. Select Blackstone Security again. And, oh, the helmet changed. There must be a variant thing I need to tick because that's not the shirt, but the helmet definitely changed. It's not liking that jacket for whatever reason. Oh, maybe it's a faction thing. Is that the opposite faction? Could be the opposite faction. Maybe that's causing the issue. Let's have another look. I didn't want to save that. Maybe the uniform is assigned to a different faction and it won't let me. I'll quickly have a look. Jacket. Let's just change some of the random other items, hey? See if it lets me save that. That's saved. Will it work in game? We'll go to editor, world editor. Hit play. Yep, so there must have been something with that jacket it didn't like. I would have to dig into a bit further as to why, but as you can see, it's changed the vest there and the helmet. So look at our character. So there we go. So the same principle can work if you're adding mods in, maybe chucking something from WCS or RHS. You can, as long as the mod is added as a dependency, you can then utilize their assets to override your default characters. The same thing works for, so campaign underscore USSR, locate the original being this one here. Right click and override if you want to have a USSR based faction or whatever other faction you want to have. So if you override the originals, it makes it a lot easier for when you're learning, getting started. And for any mission that you make that has a US using the vanilla factions, will just work. I think that pretty much covers actually, sorry, back into here. I showed you how to change the uniforms and show you how to change the weapons. What am I looking for? Character, campaign, final. Let's just quickly edit that. So same principles before though. We want to change the weapon down here. So weapon slot, it's currently on the M16. If you want to change that, magnifying glass to go back to the original. Maybe you want, I don't know what else we got. M203, M16. So click and drag that in there. Save that. So Control S, sorry. Going it back in the world editor. And should be my default loadout now. Yep, so M16 with the M203, the grenade launcher on the bottom. So really, overriding the vanilla factions is the easiest way to go. And the information is pretty much all going to be in here. What you really, for PvP anyway, the easiest part, easiest method in my opinion. Overriding this UI information, changing the identity if you want to, changing the icons, faction flags is the big things that you want to change. That gives you that little bit extra difference to just playing on another server that's running just vanilla US and USSR. And yeah, make sure, leave your faction key, leave your faction label as US. Once you start changing this, you need to make sure you know what you're doing. And that takes a bit more in-depth knowledge. Just got to jump into the wiki, the Arma Forger wikis, and read through that. Entity catalogs, as a couple other videos, you can modify them outside of this, or you can actually do it in here. I like to modify it externally. Again, that's going into the configs themselves over here. What I'm looking for, entity catalog, so US. And I will create my own from scratch generally. Not in, well, you can override here if you want, or duplicate. And again, remember if we duplicated before, it didn't seem to put all the assets in there. I like to create mine from scratch, so it gives me 100% control over what is in there. So when a new mod gets released, or an update gets released, sorry, it doesn't put in all the new assets. So I say RHS release a new mod that puts in something random, different items into their, what do you call it, RHS USMC faction entity catalog. I might not want that in my particular server or in my mission. So that gives me full control over adding in what I want. Again, play around with it, have a look at the videos, see what works for you. We didn't touch these, we're leaving these as default. Again, that's the image sets for the maps. These are the names that associate with each one of these image sets. So example, so infantry, 0. What's that, just the bottom? How do they word this? Can't remember what it is. Is it just the bottom right one? Either way. Let's go a bit more in depth for this video, what I want to do with this video. Anyway, so hopefully this covers off on some of the basics for creating your own PvP faction. If you do have any questions, again, leave it below. Hopefully that made sense. It was a little bit over the place, but I just wanted to try and get a video out. I had a pretty busy week. Please like and subscribe, and yeah, cheers. Thanks for watching.